Have you ever thought about how nature likes to arrange itself in patterns in order to act efficiently? Nothing in nature happens without its reason. All of these patterns have an important reasons to exist, and they also happen to be beautiful to watch. In general, scenes of the world patterns are regular, repeated or recurring forms of designs. We see patterns every day, from the layout of the floor tiles, arrangement of flowers, petals and leaves, the stripes and spots of animals, and the formation of the cloud. Studying pattern helps students in identifying relationships and finding logical connections to form generalization and make predictions. As what Ian Stewart said, we live in a universe of patterns, and mathematics is the study of patterns. Studying pattern is an opportunity to observe, hypothesize, experiment, discover, and even create. In this video, we will be looking at patterns and regularities in the world and how mathematics comes into play, both in nature and human resources. In introduction, patterns in nature are visible regularities of form found in the natural world. These patterns occur in different contexts and can sometimes be modeled mathematically. Natural patterns include symmetries, trees, tessellations, fractals, and spots and stripes. So the first pattern that we have is symmetry. But first, what is symmetry? Symmetry can be found everywhere around us, from the bilateral form of our own bodies to the radial form of seashells. But symmetry is not just about pleasing aesthetics features, but they also plays a vital role in nature's design. So here are the three examples of symmetry. First is the reflection symmetry. The image shows a bridge in a central structure that exhibits strong approximate reflection symmetry. Here's why it is considered as a reflection symmetry. First, it is its central axis. An imaginary vertical line drawn down the center of the image would roughly divide the structure into two mirror image halves. And the next one is its matching features. The left sides of the bridge, including the balustrades, arcs, and the decorative elements of the central tower, are nearly identical in shape and size. The image also depicts a bridge in a central structure that is perfectly mirrored across a vertical axis. Every element on one side has an exact counterpart on the other side, with identical shapes, sizes, and distances on the central axis. This idealized symmetry creates a balanced and visually harmonious. Flowers can exhibit rotational symmetry, meaning they can be rotated by a certain angle and still look the same. Imagine a flower with 5 petals. If you rotate the flower by 72 degrees or 360 degrees by 5 petals, it will look identical to its original position. This is because each petal is positioned at a unique angle around the center of the flower. The order of the rotational symmetry is the number of times a flower can be rotated by a specific angle and still look the same. In the example above, the order of rotational symmetry is by 5. The image shows a tiled wall arranged in a herringbone pattern. This pattern exhibits translational symmetry. Here's why. First, it's its repeating unit. The basic repeating unit is a pair of rectangular tiles forming a V shape. Next is the translation. This V-shaped unit is repeatedly translated or shifted both horizontally and vertically. It is also across the wall to create a V shape and move in a certain distance. It would perfectly overlap with other identical V throughout the wall.
Imagine standing in the center of a grand spiral staircase, watching each step curve away from you. Spirals have an inherent beauty and mystery, appearing everywhere from galaxies in the night sky to the smallest shells on the beach. But what if we wanted to manipulate these shapes? For example is a spiral staircase. The staircase follows a helical spiral, meaning it moves upward in a three-dimensional space while maintaining a circular path around a central axis. Each step follows a fixed radial distance from the center, while rising at a constant vertical interval, forming a helical shape. The second example is an air conditioning fan. The fan grill exhibits a logarithmic spiral, where curves expand outward from a center point in a way that it maintains a constant angle between radial lines and the curve.
Now, let's delve into the middle pattern. Middle pattern is defined as a winding, curved size that repeats itself in a continuous flow of motion. It is mostly seen in the rivers or streams, or also coastlines area. And I captured one example of a middle pattern. In the picture, as you can see, it is the Marcelo-Fernand Bridge, and it is mostly known as the Sisolex. It is located at Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu, and this was captured during the Sinulog Festival. This is an example of a middle pattern, since as you can see in the picture, it showcases the distinctive curved designs of the bridge, which is from the winding part of the lane up to its curve until it is go smaller and smaller. And also in the picture you can also see the bridge which form spans of the body of the water, and that makes it an middle pattern.
So now, let's proceed to another pattern. Did you know how waves form? But first, let's define what is a wave. A wave is a physical phenomenon characterized by its frequency, wavelength, and amplitudes. In general, waves transfer energy from one location to another, in which case they have a velocity. So here is my first example. And now I took a water in a basin, and then I disturb it through an object, in which they are called a surface wave. And then the second example that I took is I struck the calm water in a fish pond, and in which it creates a wave. Another example of waves that we can see in nature is when we go to the sea or an ocean. We can see a wave because it has a disturbance.
Today, I will discuss to you what is foams and bubbles. Foams and bubbles formed when gas is trapped within the liquid and are stabilized by the surface tension, and often with the help of surfactants. Okay, so there are examples of foams and bubbles, and I took two examples of it. I have the soap bubbles and the carbonation bubbles of soda, particularly the Sprite. These examples are man-made. If you are curious about the natural examples, you can see it anywhere, especially in the seashore and in the beaches. And that could be all about foams and bubbles.
Exhalation are geometric arrangement of shapes that fit together perfectly without overlap and gaps. This is commonly seen in nature, architecture, and art, and demonstrating symmetry or repetition. By the definition of tessellation, a tessellation or tiling is a pattern made up of one or more geometric shapes that cover surface completely without leaving any gaps or overlapping. Tessellations can be regular, semi-regular, or irregular, depending on how types of shapes, and how they fit together. So here are the example I captured of the tessellation forms. The SM seaside cube, a cube that is have three-dimensional forms, which is the best example of tessellation. This example is where identical cubes is fit perfectly together without gaps or overlaps. This extends concepts of tessellation forms from 2D to 3D space.
The kind of pattern that shows in the picture is about fracture and crack. So when we say fracture, it occurs when the applied stress is sufficient to make atomic bands dissolve. That was according to Anderson 1995 2002. So when we say crack, this propagation may be described using the energy criterion theory. That is according to Griffith 1990, which is based on thermodynamic and energy balance. So both photo was taken by me at Bareilly.
Next is stripes and spots. Stripes are made by series of bands or strips, often the same width and color along the length. Cats can be identified by their spots and stripes, but it's not just as simple as just looking for those patterns due to its unique patterns. Just like fingerprints, each cat's spot or stripe pattern is unique.
Now, let's discuss another type of pattern, the fractal pattern. The fractal pattern is defined as a self-similar design that repeats itself at different scales. So it is mostly seen at the trees or the nature, for example at the trees and etc. And I took two pictures as an example of a fractal pattern. So as you can see in the photos, it is the single frond of a palm tree and a branch of a tree. Actually, the tree is an acacia tree. So those photos, the two photos both represents or portrays a fractal pattern, since as you can see in the pictures, they both portrays a hierarchical pattern of branching, or a hierarchical branching pattern, wherein it starts with the large branches until to the smaller one. It becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, which makes it as a fractal pattern.
The next one is affine transformation. Affine transformation is a mathematical operation that preserves lines and parallelism, while altering geometric figures through translation, scaling, rotation, reflection, or shearing. It is an essential technique in graphics and design. These transformations are used to manipulate shapes while maintaining their fundamental structure. For example, a broccoli. A broccoli is a great natural example of affine transformation due to its self-similarity and fractal structure. If you observe a broccoli, you'll notice that each small bud looks like a miniature version of the entire vegetable.
What is a Fibonacci sequence? Fibonacci sequence is a natural phenomenon such as the arrangement of a leaf and a seam of the spiral pattern of seashells. Showcases a surprising link between mathematical principles and organic growth. This inherent mathematical order within the natural world highlights the elegance and predictive power of mathematical models. The first example that I took is the seashells, in which it has a spiral model. It follows the Fibonacci sequence.
Nothing in nature happens without a reasons. All of these patterns have an important reasons to exist, and they also happen to be beautiful to watch.